We have a light bulb moment here, y'all. A light bulb moment from evangelical Christians. So this is in a Raw Story. They say, a pastor is alarmed after Trump-loving congregants deride Jesus' teachings as weak. Well, now they're just saying the quiet part out loud. We knew that they felt that for a while, but now they're actually saying it. Evangelical Christian leader Russell Moore revealed this week that many evangelical pastors have become alarmed that their Trump-loving congregants have become so militant that they are even rejecting the teachings of Jesus Christ. In an interview with NPR, Moore said that multiple pastors had told him disturbing stories about their congregants being upset when they read from the famous Sermon on the Mount, in which Christ espoused the principles of forgiveness and mercy as central to Christian doctrine. Quote, multiple pastors tell me, essentially, the same story about quoting a Sermon on the Mount, parenthetically, in their preaching, turn the other cheek, and to have someone come up after to say, where'd you get those liberal talking points from? Moore revealed. And what was alarming to me is that in most of these scenarios, when the pastor would say, I'm literally quoting Jesus Christ, the response would not be, I apologize. The response would be, yes, but that doesn't work anymore. That's weak. Moore, who has also been an outspoken critic of many evangelicals' embrace of Trump, argues that this has led him to conclude that American evangelical Christianity is now in crisis. Quote, when we get to the point where the teachings of Jesus himself are seen as subversive to us, then we're in a crisis, he said. Moore also said that one problem is that many Christians simply feel alienated and lonely, as politics have come to take over the community outlets that churches once held. Quote, the roots of the political problem really come down to disconnection, loneliness, sense of alienation, he said. Even in churches that are still healthy and functioning, regular church-going is not what it was a generation ago, in which the entire structure of the week was defined by the community. He's got a good point at the end there. It's sort of like Facebook groups for boomers have overtaken what the church used to be. And so the feeling of community and connection that you have with, you know, your neighbors is more through, hey, let's mingle on this pro-Trump social media page. You know, like, let's base our identity around this. Let's be brainwashed by Fox News 24/7 and get further brainwashed by dumb boomer memes on Facebook. And this is what we're left with. And this is somebody who's in the belly of the beast sounding the alarm and saying, this is wild, man. This is wild. This is the new community that a lot of people have built, particularly older people probably in rural areas, overwhelmingly whiter people. Now, I will say this on his other point, though. Dude, I got bad news for you. These evangelical Christians were never too hot on the teachings of Jesus. I'm sorry they weren't. We've said it a million times. Jesus is basically a communist before communism was a thing. That's what he is. He very clearly is anti-rich, very clearly is pro-poor. You know, it's easier for a camel to get through the eye of a needle than a rich person to get into heaven. The whole idea is the downtrodden and the disrespected and the poor are the ones who will inherit the kingdom of God. These are the holy people. I mean, the Jesus that is the historical Jesus would absolutely be in favor of, say, universal health care, higher minimum wage, unions, universal basic income, the right to a house, making sure there's no homeless people, making sure everybody's got some food in their belly and a roof over their head. Like, this is basic stuff, right? But they were never really that hot on it, man. They were never that hot on it. I mean, remember when we had this giant rise of evangelical fundamentalist Christianity in this country, it was what's called the moral majority. It was the Pat Robertsons and the Jerry Falwells in like the late 1970s and early 1980s. And the whole thing was based on being like anti-gay and embracing tradition with the family and, you know, taking people who are in minority communities and marginalized communities and further marginalizing them and saying that they're degenerates. And you go back further than that. And actually, so I was talking about the 1970s, 1980s version of it. In the 1950s and 60s, they used religious arguments to justify segregation. That was their whole point. It was like a racial identity thing that they cloaked in Christianity. So, I mean, I love this guy, and clearly he means well, and clearly he's saying, hey, I want you to really embrace the kind teachings of Jesus. That's what this guy wants. But, dude, these people were never about that. You know, think of all the most uber-religious candidates you can think of in modern American history, and what are you left with? You're left with Mike Pence, just deeply, deeply anti-abortion. You're left with Rick Santorum and Mike Huckabee, anti-abortion, anti-gay, for low taxes on corporations and the rich. This is what it is. This is what it's become. Or actually, to be more clear, this is what it always has been. If you want a tradition that's more true to the actual teachings of Jesus, that tradition probably exists in the Unitarian Universalist Church or in the Black Church. It's certainly not something that, white evangelical fundamentalists embrace. It's just not. I mean, the whole history of it is the exact opposite. So I love this guy. He's, unironically, no pun intended, doing God's work by trying to make these people open their eyes to kindness and empathy and sympathy and the Sermon on the Mount and forgiveness and all that stuff. But, I mean, he's up against some very, very dark forces here. And the fact of the matter is, we've seen the videos, we've talked about it on this show. The people who are remaining in Trump's grasp are really more or less in a cult. They view him as, yes, replacing Jesus. They view him as like, he's the ultimate leader. He's the emperor God king. He's the one who's going to take us out of the wilderness. He's the one who's going to drain the swamp. He's the one who's going to look out for us, despite the fact he literally hasn't looked out for you, and he was in office for 4 years. He did the opposite. So, I love this guy. He clearly means well. No disrespect to him, but the fact of the matter is, that ship sailed a long, long time ago. Evangelical Christianity in this country went from being a movement on white identity to being a movement against gay people and various minorities and telling women to get back into the kitchen. Deeply anti-abortion movement. And now it's tied in inextricably with Trump. And they'll probably turn around to you and say, yeah, forget all that weak stuff about helping the poor and being kind, doing forgiveness. I believe in the anti-abortion stuff, and Trump put the Supreme Court in place that overturned Roe. So I'm with him, and he's like Jesus. And it's like, okay, dude, okay. But it is disturbing that these people wholly reject the message of Jesus. And if they actually listen to him more directly when it comes to being kind and being empathetic and looking after the poor, then it'd be much more appealing, and we'd have a much better country. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.